Hey everyone, I noticed a lot of you who are watching and enjoying the content aren't subscribed yet. If you love spine-chilling stories, creepy encounters, and unexplained mysteries, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on the next terrifying upload. It really helps the channel grow and lets me keep bringing you more of the content you love. You know when you're scrolling through Facebook and something catches your eye? That's how it began for me. I was just killing time on my lunch break, scrolling through my feed, when I saw a profile picture that made me do a double take. At first, I thought it was my own profile. The woman in the picture looked exactly like me, same haircut, same smile, even the same earrings I always wear. But the name was different. Sarah Miller. I don't know any Sarah Miller. Curious, I clicked on the profile. That's when things got really strange. This Sarah person seemed to have a life eerily similar to mine. She worked at a marketing firm just like me. She had 2 kids, a boy and a girl, just like me. Her last post was about a family trip to the beach. We'd just gotten back from one last weekend. I felt a chill run down my spine. This was way too close for comfort. I mean, what are the odds of someone looking exactly like me and having such a similar life? I tried to shake it off, tell myself it was just a weird coincidence, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Over the next few days, I found myself checking Sarah's profile more and more. Each new post made me more uneasy. She shared a photo of her dog, a golden retriever that looked just like my Max. She posted about a promotion at work. I'd just gotten one too. It was like looking at a mirror of my life, but with tiny, unsettling differences. I started losing sleep over it. I'd lie awake at night, my mind racing with questions. Who was this woman? How did she know so much about my life? Was someone playing an elaborate prank on me? I tried talking to my husband about it, but he just shrugged it off. Said it was probably just some random person who happened to look like me, but he hadn't seen what I'd seen. He didn't understand how creepy it was. Things took a turn for the worse when Sarah started posting about personal stuff, things only my closest friends knew. She wrote about struggling with anxiety, something I'd only recently started opening up about. She shared a childhood memory that was almost identical to one of mine. That's when I knew this couldn't be a coincidence. Someone was stealing my identity, my life story. But why, and how did they know all these details? I became obsessed with finding out who Sarah really was. I spent hours each day combing through her profile, looking for clues. I even tried messaging her, but she never responded. Her friends list was private, so I couldn't see who she was connected to. My work started to suffer. I was distracted all the time, constantly checking my phone for updates on Sarah's profile. My boss noticed and gave me a warning. But I couldn't stop. I felt like I was going crazy, but I had to get to the bottom of this. I started doing some detective work. I reverse image searched Sarah's photos, but they didn't show up anywhere else online. I tried finding her on other social media platforms, but there was no trace of her. It was like she only existed on Facebook. Then one day, something truly terrifying happened. Sarah posted a photo of her house. It was my house. The exact same angle, the same flowers in the front yard that I'd planted last spring. But there was one difference. The front door was a different color. I felt sick to my stomach. This person, whoever they were, had been to my house. They were watching me. My safe space suddenly felt violated. I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to go to the police. I gathered all the evidence I could, screenshots of Sarah's posts, side-by-side comparisons of our photos. I felt ridiculous walking into the station, but I was desperate for help. The officer listened patiently as I explained everything. But I could see the doubt in his eyes. He said they'd look into it, but I could tell he thought I was overreacting. Maybe I was, but something in my gut told me this was serious. As the weeks went by, Sarah's posts became even more aligned with my life. It was like she was living a parallel version of my existence, always one step ahead. I'd have a thought about redecorating my living room, and the next day she'd post about her new furniture. I'd have a fight with my husband, and she'd write a vague post about relationship struggles. I started to feel like I was losing my grip on reality. Was I the real me, or was she? It sounds crazy, I know, but when you see someone else living your life, posting your thoughts, sharing your experiences, it messes with your head. My friends started to worry about me. They said I was acting paranoid, that I needed to step away from social media for a while. Maybe they were right. But I couldn't shake the feeling that if I looked away, even for a moment, I'd lose myself completely. I became a shell of my former self. I was constantly on edge, jumping at every notification on my phone. I started seeing Sarah everywhere, in the grocery store, at the park, driving past my house. But whenever I looked closer, it was just a stranger with a vague resemblance. My husband finally put his foot down. He said I needed help, that this obsession was tearing our family apart. I knew he was right, but I felt so alone. How could I explain the terror of watching your identity slowly being erased and replaced? In a last-ditch effort to prove I wasn't crazy, I decided to confront Sarah in person. I had a general idea of where she lived based on her posts. It was a long shot, but I had to try. I drove to her neighborhood, my heart pounding. As I turned onto her street, I saw a woman who looked just like me walking into a house. This was it. I'd finally found her. With shaking hands, I got out of the car and walked up to the door. I took a deep breath and knocked. The door opened, and I came face to face with myself. But it wasn't me. It was Sarah. We stared at each other in shock. In that moment, I realized the truth. There was no identity theft, no parallel life. Sarah was real, and so was I. We were just two people who happened to look alike and have similar lives. As we talked, the fear and paranoia that had consumed me for months began to melt away. Sarah was just as freaked out as I was. We laughed about the coincidences, marveled at our similarities. I left Sarah's house feeling lighter than I had in months. The mystery was solved, and it was so much simpler than I'd imagined. I'd let my fears run wild, nearly ruining my life in the process. Looking back, I can see how ridiculous it all was. But in the moment it felt so real, so threatening. I learned an important lesson about the power of social media to distort reality, and the dangers of letting fear take control. Now, Sarah and I are friends, for real, not just on Facebook. We laugh about our twin lives and the crazy coincidences that brought us together. It's a reminder that sometimes the simplest explanation is the right one, and that stepping away from the screen and into the real world can bring clarity when you need it most. I was scrolling through Facebook one evening, mindlessly liking posts and leaving comments, when suddenly I was logged out. No big deal, I thought. I'd just log back in. But I couldn't. My password didn't work. I tried resetting it, but even with the new password, I was locked out. Frustrated, I decided to deal with it in the morning. The next day, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Texts from friends asking if I was okay, what was going on with my Facebook. I had no idea what they meant. I borrowed my roommate's laptop to check my profile. What I saw made my stomach drop. There were posts I never made, things I'd never say, embarrassing photos I thought I'd deleted years ago. How did someone get those? It got worse. The hacker was posting about my personal life, sharing secrets only my closest friends knew. They were writing awful things about my coworkers, my boss, even my girlfriend. I felt sick. I tried contacting Facebook support, but it was like shouting into the void. No response. Meanwhile, the posts kept coming. Friends were unfriending me left and right. I got a call from HR asking me to come in for a meeting. At work, my boss looked disappointed. She showed me screenshots of the posts about the company. I tried to explain, but how do you prove you didn't write something on your own account? I was put on leave pending an investigation. My girlfriend wasn't answering my calls. When I went to her place, she wouldn't let me in. She'd seen the posts too, including ones about cheating that weren't true. Nothing I said could convince her. I felt like I was losing my mind. How could this be happening? Who would do this to me? I racked my brain trying to think of anyone who might have a grudge against me, but came up empty. Days passed. I couldn't sleep. I barely ate. My whole life was unraveling and I felt powerless to stop it. The hacker kept posting, revealing things I'd never told anyone. How did they know about the time I shoplifted as a kid? Or about the crush I had on my high school teacher? I became paranoid. Was someone watching me? Had my phone or computer been hacked too? I started looking over my shoulder everywhere I went, convinced I was being followed. In desperation, I reached out to an old friend who worked in IT security. He agreed to look into it for me. While I waited to hear back, things got even worse. The hacker posted my social security number and credit card info. I had to freeze all my accounts and file reports for identity theft. My friend called a few days later. He'd traced the IP address of the hacker. It was coming from my neighborhood. In fact, it was coming from my building. I felt a chill run down my spine. Someone close to me was doing this, but who? I only knew a couple of my neighbors, and none well enough for this level of personal info. Then it hit me. My roommate. We'd lived together for years, shared so much of our lives. He had access to my computer, my phone when I left it lying around. He'd been there through breakups and work drama, heard all my stories. I confronted him that night. At first, he denied it, but when I showed him the evidence my friend had found, He broke down. He admitted everything. Said he'd always been jealous of my life, my friends, my success. He'd been planning this for years, gathering info, waiting for the right moment. I was stunned. This person I thought was my friend had systematically destroyed my life. I called the police, and he was arrested for identity theft and cybercrime. But the damage was done. Even after regaining control of my account and explaining what happened, many friends remained distant. I lost my job. My girlfriend had moved on. My credit was in shambles. I deleted all my social media accounts, changed my phone number, moved to a new city for a fresh start, but I still find myself looking over my shoulder, wondering who else might be watching, waiting. It's been a year now. Things are slowly getting better. I have a new job, made some new friends, but I'll never be the same. I'm more cautious now, more private. I think twice before sharing anything online or with anyone. Sometimes I miss the connectedness of social media, the easy way to keep in touch with people. But then I remember how quickly it all fell apart, how one person with access to my digital life nearly ruined everything. I still use the internet, of course. It's almost impossible not to in today's world. But I'm careful. I use strong passwords, two-factor authentication, limit what I share. I keep my circle small and my personal information closer. The experience taught me a hard lesson about trust in the digital age. We put so much of ourselves online, often without thinking. We assume we're sharing with friends, but we can never be sure who's really watching or what they might do with that information. I'm rebuilding my life now, offline. It's harder in some ways, but also more real. I've rediscovered the joy of face-to-face conversations, of experiences not filtered through a screen. I'm learning to trust again, but slowly, cautiously. The internet and social media aren't inherently bad. They're tools, and like any tools, they can be used for good or ill. It's up to us to use them wisely, to be aware of the risks and protect ourselves. My story is extreme, I know. Most people won't experience anything like what I went through. But it can happen. So be careful out there. Think before you post. Guard your personal information. And remember that the person you think is a friend online might not always have your best interests at heart. As for me, I'm taking it one day at a time. Rebuilding trust, rebuilding my life. It's not easy, but I'm getting there. And I'm stronger for having gone through it. Just wiser now and a lot more careful about who I let into my life, both online and off. It's been a crazy few weeks, and I'm still not sure what to make of it all. I guess I should start from the beginning. My best friend Sarah and I have known each other since college. We've always been close, even after graduation when we moved to different cities. We kept in touch mostly through Facebook, liking each other's posts and sharing funny memes. It was our way of staying connected despite the distance. About a month ago, I noticed Sarah hadn't been active on Facebook for a few days. At first, I didn't think much of it. She sometimes got busy with work or took short breaks from social media, but as the days turned into a week, I started to worry. I tried texting her, but my messages went unanswered. Calls went straight to voicemail. I even emailed her, thinking maybe her phone was broken. Nothing. After 2 weeks of silence, I was really concerned. I reached out to some of our mutual friends, but no one had heard from her either. I was about to call her parents when something strange happened. Sarah's Facebook profile suddenly came alive again. She started liking posts and sharing articles. I felt relieved at first, thinking she must have been on a trip or something and just forgot to tell anyone. But then I noticed something odd. The posts she was liking and sharing were all over the place. One minute it was a cooking video, the next it was a conspiracy theory about aliens. Sarah had always been pretty consistent in her interests, so this seemed out of character. What really freaked me out was the timing and location of these activities. There were likes and shares happening at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., sometimes even later, and the locations were all over the map, literally. One post was tagged in New York, another in Los Angeles, and yet another in some small town I'd never heard of. I tried messaging her on Facebook, asking if everything was okay. The message was seen almost immediately, but there was no reply. This went on for days. Her profile was active, but it was like she was ignoring me completely. I started digging deeper, looking at the content she was interacting with more closely. Some of it was really dark stuff. True crime stories, unsolved mysteries, and creepy urban legends. Sarah had never been into that kind of thing before. At this point, I was seriously freaked out. I couldn't shake the feeling that something bad had happened to Sarah, and whoever was using her account now might know something about it. I decided to do some detective work of my own. I looked up her last known address, and found her landlord's contact information. When I called, he told me Sarah had moved out suddenly about a month ago. She paid her rent in full but left no forwarding address. This information only made me more worried. It didn't make sense for Sarah to just up and leave without telling anyone, especially me. We'd always shared big life changes with each other. I spent hours scrolling through her Facebook profile, looking for any clues. The more I looked, the more convinced I became that this wasn't Sarah. The writing style and the few status updates posted was different. The emoji usage was off. It was like someone was trying to impersonate her but getting little details wrong. I started keeping a log of all the activity on her profile. The pattern was erratic, with bursts of activity followed by hours of silence. Sometimes there would be likes and shares happening simultaneously in different parts of the country. One night, I was up late, watching her profile for any new activity. At exactly 3:33 a.m., a new post appeared. It was a photo of an empty room with peeling wallpaper and a single chair in the center. The caption read, "Home sweet home." My blood ran cold. This definitely wasn't Sarah. She would never post something so creepy, especially not in the middle of the night. I reported the account to Facebook, explaining my concerns. They got back to me a few days later, saying they'd investigated and found no suspicious activity. According to them, the account was being accessed from Sarah's usual devices and locations. This left me more confused than ever. If Sarah was fine, why wasn't she responding to any of my messages? And if something had happened to her, how was her account still active? I was losing sleep over this, constantly checking her profile for any new clues. My own Facebook activity started to mirror the erratic pattern I'd noticed on Sarah's account. Friends started asking if I was okay, noticing my late-night posts and weird shares. After a month of this, I was at my wit's end. I decided to take a more drastic step. I booked a flight to Sarah's city, determined to find out what was going on. As soon as I landed, I headed to her old apartment building. The landlord recognized me from our phone conversation and let me take a look around the now empty apartment. Everything looked normal at first. But then I noticed something odd. In the back of a closet, there was a small piece of paper stuck to the wall. I peeled it off and found a series of numbers and letters scribbled on it. I didn't know what to make of it, but I took a photo just in case. As I was leaving the building, my phone buzzed. It was a Facebook notification. Sarah had just tagged me in a post. My hands shaking, I opened the app. The post was another creepy photo, this time of a dark forest at night. The caption read, "Why don't you come find me?" I froze, staring at my phone. This couldn't be a coincidence. Whoever was controlling Sarah's account knew I was here, looking for her. As I stood there on the sidewalk, torn between fear and determination, I realized this mystery was far from over. In fact, it felt like it was just beginning. I don't know what happened to Sarah or who's been using her Facebook account, but I'm going to find out, no matter how scary things get, because that's what best friends do. They don't give up on each other, even when things get weird and creepy. So here I am, in a city I don't know, chasing down clues that might not even mean anything, all because of some strange Facebook activity. If you told me a month ago that I'd be doing this, I would have laughed. But now, as I sit in this cheap motel room, planning my next move, I'm not laughing at all. I'm scared, confused, and more determined than ever to uncover the truth behind the missing friend. It started innocently enough, just another friend request on Facebook. The profile picture showed a guy about my age, smiling in front of a beach sunset. I didn't recognize him, but we had a few mutual friends in common. I figured he was probably someone I'd met at a party or through work. I accepted without giving it much thought. At first, everything seemed normal. The guy, let's call him Alex, would occasionally like my posts or leave generic comments. Nothing out of the ordinary. But after a few weeks, I started to notice something odd. Alex's comments became more personal, referencing things about my life I was sure I'd never shared online. One day I posted a photo of my new puppy. Alex commented, "Cute, bet he likes peanut butter as much as your childhood dog Rusty did." I froze. How could he possibly know about Rusty? I'd gotten Rusty when I was 8 years old, long before social media existed. I'd never mentioned him online. Unsettled, I clicked on Alex's profile to investigate. That's when things got even weirder. His profile was completely bare, no photos besides his profile picture, no personal info, no visible post history. How did we have mutual friends if he'd never posted anything? I messaged one of our mutual friends to ask how they knew Alex. They had no idea who I was talking about. I checked again, and suddenly Alex wasn't showing up in their friend list anymore. A chill ran down my spine. I decided to block Alex and forget about the whole thing, But the next day, I had a new friend request from someone named Andrew. The profile picture was different, but the comments were identical to Alex's. Same writing style, same creepy personal knowledge. Now thoroughly freaked out, I started going through all my privacy settings. I set everything to friends only and removed location data from my posts. I changed my passwords and enabled two-factor authentication, but it didn't help. Andrew, or Alex, or whoever it was, still seemed to know everything about my life. They'd comment on photos I hadn't even shared yet. They'd reference conversations I'd had in private messages. It was like they could see my entire account regardless of my privacy settings. I became paranoid, wondering if my account had been hacked. I scanned my computer for viruses and malware. I checked for any suspicious logins or devices connected to my account. Nothing. The comments kept coming, getting more invasive by the day. They started mentioning my family members, my job, even my daily routines. I felt like I was being watched constantly. I tried reporting the profile to Facebook, but it would disappear before they could review it, only to pop up again under a new name. I couldn't block them fast enough. My friends started to notice something was off. I'd get texts asking why I was acting so weird online. Apparently, this person had started messaging my friends while posing as me. They'd say offensive things or share embarrassing secrets, then delete the messages before I could see them. I tried to explain what was happening, but it sounded crazy even to my own ears. My friends started to distance themselves, thinking I was having some kind of breakdown. I deactivated my Facebook account, hoping it would stop. But then the emails started, and the texts, always from unknown numbers or addresses that couldn't be traced. I felt like I was losing my mind. I couldn't sleep. I jumped at every notification on my phone. I started seeing that beach sunset profile picture everywhere I looked. In desperation, I reached out to a cybersecurity expert. They investigated my accounts and devices, but found nothing out of the ordinary. They suggested it might be someone I know in real life, someone with intimate knowledge of my past and present. But that was impossible. The things this person knew, they were things nobody else could know. Childhood memories I'd never shared, thoughts I'd never spoken aloud. It's been months now, and I still don't have answers. I've all but disconnected from the online world. I deleted all my social media, changed my number, even moved to a new apartment. But I can't shake the feeling that I'm still being watched. Sometimes I wonder if it was all in my head, if I imagined the whole thing in some stress-induced paranoia. But then I'll get a letter in the mail or see a comment on an old blog I'd forgotten about, and it all comes rushing back. I don't know if I'll ever feel truly safe online again. I used to think privacy settings and strong passwords were enough to protect me. Now I know better. There are things out there in the digital world that we can't explain or defend against. So I'm sharing my story as a warning. Be careful what you share online. You never know who might be watching. And if you ever get a friend request from someone you don't know, even if you have mutual friends, think twice before you accept. You might be letting in the perfect stranger. It was just another boring Tuesday night when I got the notification. A Facebook event invite for our high school reunion popped up on my phone. I thought it was weird since we hadn't planned one this year, but I figured maybe someone decided to throw a last-minute get-together. Curious, I clicked on the event details. It seemed legit enough. The location was a local community center, and the date was set for next Saturday. I scrolled through the guest list and saw a bunch of familiar names from my graduating class. A few of my close friends had already RSVP'd going. I didn't think much of it and hit interested. Why not? It could be fun to catch up with old classmates. Plus, I didn't have any other plans that weekend. Over the next few days, I texted back and forth with my high school besties, Sarah, Mike, and Jess. They were all planning to go too. We made plans to meet up beforehand and head to the reunion together. When Saturday rolled around, I spent way too long picking out an outfit and doing my hair. Wanted to look good for all those people I hadn't seen in years, you know. I finally settled on a nice shirt and jeans, nothing too fancy. I met up with my friends at a nearby coffee shop. We were all a mix of excited and nervous about seeing everyone again. After catching up for a bit, we piled into Mike's car to drive over to the community center. The parking lot was pretty empty when we got there, which seemed odd. We figured we must be early. As we walked up to the entrance, I started to get an uneasy feeling. The building was dark, and there were no signs or decorations for a reunion. Mike tried the door, but it was locked. We looked at each other, confused. Sarah pulled out her phone to double-check the event details. "This is definitely the right place and time," she said, frowning at her screen. We stood there for a few minutes, unsure what to do. A couple more cars pulled up, and some other former classmates got out. They looked just as confused as we were. I suggested we walk around the building to see if there was another entrance. As we turned the corner, I heard a scream. I whipped around to see Jess was gone. She had been right behind me a second ago. Panic set in. We started calling her name, but there was no response. Mike tried calling her cell, but it went straight to voicemail. That's when things got really weird. One by one, people started disappearing. It was like they were being picked off when no one was looking. Within minutes, half our group was gone without a trace. Those of us left huddled together, terrified. We tried to make a run for our cars, but they wouldn't start. Our phones had no signal. We were trapped. As the night wore on, more people vanished. I was exhausted and scared out of my mind. I kept thinking this had to be some kind of sick prank, but it felt too real. It wasn't until hours later that we figured out what was going on. One of the guys who was left, Tim, realized he recognized the event organizer's name from somewhere. He pulled up the profile on his phone, thank God for offline mode, and showed us. The profile belonged to this creepy guy who had gone to a neighboring high school. Apparently he'd been obsessed with our class for years, constantly trying to friend people and showing up uninvited to parties. Looking through his profile, we saw years of posts about our class. He had been meticulously gathering information on all of us through social media. He knew where we worked, who we were dating, what our hobbies were, everything. That's when it hit me how much information I shared online without thinking. This guy had used all that data to set up this elaborate trap. He knew exactly who would come and how to lure us here. As the realization sank in, I heard footsteps approaching. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. I looked around frantically for a place to hide, but there was nowhere to go. The last thing I remember is a dark figure coming around the corner. Then everything went black. I woke up in a hospital bed 3 days later. The cops told me they had found me and a few others unconscious in an abandoned warehouse miles from the community center. They're still searching for the rest of my classmates and the guy behind it all. It's been weeks, and I'm still shaken up. I can't stop thinking about how easily we were all manipulated, how much of our lives we put out there for anyone to see and use against us. I've deleted all my social media accounts. It feels weird not being connected all the time, but I don't think I'll ever be able to trust it again. The thought of someone watching my every post and using that information to hurt me is too much. Sometimes I lay awake at night wondering about my friends who are still missing. Where are they? Are they okay? Will we ever find out what really happened that night? I don't have any answers. All I know is that I'll never look at a Facebook event invite the same way again. You never know who's really behind that screen or what their intentions might be. Be careful out there, folks. You never know who's watching. Just a weird post here and there on my Facebook feed. Nothing too out of the ordinary at first. We all see random stuff online sometimes, right? But over time, I started noticing a pattern. More and more dark, violent content kept popping up. Gruesome crime scene photos, conspiracy theory rants, graphic videos I really wished I could unsee. I tried to ignore it at first. Figured maybe I'd accidentally clicked on something that messed up my algorithm. But no matter how many times I cleared my history or reported posts, the disturbing content just kept coming. The ads got creepy too. Instead of the usual boring stuff for lawn care and car insurance, I started seeing ads for things like bulletproof vests, survival gear, and strange medical treatments. The suggested groups were even worse. Doomsday preppers, extremist militias, and people who believed in some really out there theories. I started spending less time on Facebook. It was getting to be too much. But then I began noticing changes in the real world too. My normally friendly neighbors seemed on edge. Mrs. Johnson across the street put up a big beware sign and security cameras. The guy next door started doing target practice in his backyard. At work, things felt off too. Coworkers who used to chat and joke around were now huddled in corners, whispering. I overheard snippets about government conspiracies and imminent societal collapse. Even my usually level-headed boss seemed paranoid, installing extra locks on his office door. Weird stuff started happening around town. The local grocery store got cleaned out of canned goods and bottled water. There was a run on the bank. Lots of businesses stayed closed with no explanation. I tried to rationalize it all. Maybe the town was just going through a rough patch. Maybe I was being overly sensitive. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. One day, scrolling through Facebook, despite my better judgment, I saw a suggested article, "Is social media controlling your mind?" Normally I'd ignore clickbait like that. But given everything that had been happening, I decided to read it. The article talked about experiments some social media companies were allegedly doing, testing how far they could push people's emotions and behavior through targeted content, seeing if they could induce fear, paranoia, even violence on a mass scale. It hit way too close to home. I started thinking back over the past few months, how gradually but unmistakably both my online world and my real world had shifted, how it wasn't just me. It seemed like my whole community had been affected. I dug deeper, researching online and discreetly asking around town. I found more people who'd had similar experiences. Strange changes to their social media feeds followed by disturbing real-world consequences. It was like a switch flipped in my brain. Suddenly I could see the whole picture. We were lab rats in a massive social experiment. Facebook's algorithm wasn't just showing us content, it was actively trying to shape our thoughts and actions. And it was working. I tried to warn people, but it wasn't easy. Those who hadn't been affected thought I sounded crazy. And those who had been affected were too far gone, too paranoid to trust anyone. I did what I could. I deleted Facebook and urged others to do the same. I organized community meetings to try to bring people together face to face. I reached out to journalists and watchdog groups, sharing what I'd discovered. Slowly, things started to improve. As people disconnected from social media, the tension in town eased. Neighbors started talking to each other again. The paranoia at work faded, but I know we're not out of the woods. The experiment may be over in our town, but who knows where else it's happening. How many other communities are being manipulated without even realizing it? I can't look at social media the same way anymore. What I once saw as a harmless way to stay connected now seems dangerous, a tool that can be used to control and divide us. I'm sharing my story as a warning. Pay attention to what you're seeing online. Question why certain content is being shown to you. And most importantly, don't let algorithms replace real human connection. What happened in my town could happen anywhere. The technology that's supposed to bring us together could instead be tearing us apart. It's up to us to recognize the danger and take back control of our own minds. I'm not saying to abandon all technology or live in fear, but we need to be aware of how powerful these tools can be, how they can shape our perceptions and behavior in ways we might not even notice. Now, I focus on real-world interactions. I talk to my neighbors face to face. I've joined local clubs and volunteer groups. I'm working to rebuild the sense of community that was almost destroyed. It's not always easy. The effects of the experiment linger. Some people are still suspicious and withdrawn, but every day I see progress. A friendly wave here, a neighborhood cookout there. Small steps toward healing. I often wonder about the people behind the experiment. Did they know the harm they were causing? Did they care? Or were we just data points to them, numbers on a screen? I may never know the full truth, but I know what I experienced. I know how close we came to losing the fabric of our community, and I'm determined not to let it happen again. So I keep sharing my story. I keep encouraging people to think critically about their social media use. I keep working to strengthen real-world connections, because in the end, that's what will save us, not algorithms or digital networks, but genuine human relationships. The kind built on trust, empathy, and face-to-face communication. I don't know what the future holds. Technology will keep advancing, and with it, new challenges will arise. It all started when I was scrolling through Facebook, killing time before bed. A friend's post caught my eye. Nothing special, just a meme about cats. But when I clicked on it, something weird happened. Instead of the meme, I found myself in a group I'd never seen before. At first, I didn't think much of it. Facebook's always glitchy, and I figured I'd just stumbled into some random group by accident. But as I looked closer, things started to feel off. The group was tiny, maybe 50 members tops. No description, no clear purpose. Just a bunch of posts that didn't make sense. Curious, I started scrolling through the content. The posts were strange. Cryptic messages, distorted images, stories that made my skin crawl. I told myself I should leave, but something kept me scrolling. That's when I saw it, a photo that made my blood run cold. It was me. But not just any photo of me. It was taken through my bedroom window late at night. I was at my desk, working on my laptop. The angle was all wrong. It had to have been taken from outside, probably from the tree near my window. The worst part? I had no memory of anyone being there that night. My heart racing, I dug deeper into the group. More photos appeared. Me at the grocery store, walking my dog, even sitting in my car at a red light. All taken without my knowledge. I felt sick to my stomach, violated in a way I couldn't describe, but it got worse. As I looked at the members list, familiar names started popping up. Friends, coworkers, even my next-door neighbor. People I trusted, people I saw every day. They were all part of this, whatever it was. I couldn't believe it. These people, my friends, had been secretly photographing me and sharing the images in this creepy group. But why? What was the point of all this? The more I scrolled, the more disturbing it became. It wasn't just me, there were photos of other people too. Some I recognized, some I didn't. All of them unaware they were being watched and photographed. I wanted to confront my friends, demand answers. But something held me back. What if there was more to this than I realized? What if exposing what I'd found would lead to even darker secrets? For days I couldn't sleep. Every time I left my house I felt eyes on me. I started checking for hidden cameras, drawing my curtains tight at night. Paranoia took over my life. I couldn't look at my friends the same way anymore, always wondering if they were secretly taking photos of me. I considered going to the police, but what would I tell them? That I found a creepy Facebook group? That my friends were taking secret photos of me? It sounded crazy even to my own ears. The worst part was the uncertainty. I had no idea how long this had been going on or why. Were they planning something? Was I in danger? Or was it just some sick game they were playing? I tried to act normal around my friends, but it was hard. Every time someone took out their phone, I flinched. Every innocent photo op felt like a threat. I started making excuses to avoid social gatherings, afraid of what might happen if I let my guard down. Weeks passed and the group remained active. New photos appeared daily, not just of me but of others too. I recognized some of the locations, the local park, the mall, even the inside of some houses. It was clear that this wasn't just about me. It was bigger, more organized than I'd first thought. I became obsessed with the group, checking it multiple times a day. I started recognizing patterns, noticing how certain members always posted at specific times. I began to piece together a bigger picture, but it only left me with more questions. One night, unable to sleep, I decided to take action. I created a fake profile and requested to join the group. To my surprise, I was accepted almost immediately. Now an official member, I had access to even more content. What I found made me wish I'd never looked. There were discussions about targets, people being watched, detailed schedules of their daily routines, plans for future captures, the photos they intended to take. It was meticulously organized, almost professional in its execution. I realized I was in way over my head. This wasn't just a creepy hobby, it was something much more sinister. But now that I was in the group, I felt a responsibility to do something. Maybe I could gather evidence, find a way to shut it down without exposing myself. As days turned into weeks, I lived a double life. On the surface, I was the same old me, but inside I was a nervous wreck, constantly checking the group, trying to piece together its purpose. I started noticing things in the real world, too. A car that seemed to always be parked on my street, a person who always seemed to be at the same coffee shop as me. The stress was getting to me. I lost weight, couldn't focus at work. My friends, the ones I now knew were part of this group, started asking if I was okay. The irony of their concern wasn't lost on me. I knew I couldn't keep this up forever. Sooner or later, something had to give. Either I'd crack under the pressure, or I'd slip up and they'd realize I knew. Either way, I was running out of time. As I write this, I'm still not sure what to do. Part of me wants to run, to pack up and disappear. Another part wants to confront them, to demand answers. But mostly, I'm scared. Scared of what might happen if I make the wrong move. I never thought a simple click could change my life so dramatically. Now, every notification on my phone sends a chill down my spine. Every friendly wave from a neighbor feels like a threat. I don't know who to trust anymore, or if this nightmare will ever end. All I know is that somewhere out there, in a secret corner of the internet, my life is on display for all to see, and I'm powerless to stop it. I never thought I'd be scared of Facebook, of all things. But here I am, staring at my screen, heart racing, wondering if I'm losing my mind or if something way creepier is going on. It started about a week ago. I was scrolling through my feed, bored as usual, when I got a friend request. No big deal, right? Except the name made my stomach drop. Sarah Thompson, my best friend, who died 2 years ago. I thought it was some sick joke at first. Maybe someone hacked her old account or made a fake profile. I almost deleted it right away, but curiosity got the better of me. I clicked on the profile. It looked exactly like Sarah's old page. Same profile picture, same cover photo of us at the beach. Even her old posts were there. It was like stepping back in time, seeing her life frozen on the screen. I didn't accept the request. Instead, I closed Facebook and tried to forget about it. But the next day, there was a message waiting for me. Hey bestie, long time no talk. Remember that time we snuck out to go to Jake's party? My hands were shaking as I read it. Jake's party was our little secret. We never told anyone else about it. How could some random hacker know that? I didn't reply. More messages came over the next few days. Each one mentioned something only Sarah and I knew about. Our secret handshake, the crush I had on my math teacher, the time we got lost hiking and had to be rescued. It freaked me out, but I still thought there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe Sarah had written these things in a diary that someone found, or maybe I was remembering wrong and we had told other people about this stuff. Then came the message that changed everything. I'm sorry I left without saying goodbye. I didn't mean to leave you alone. Sarah died in a car accident. It was sudden. No one saw it coming. She couldn't have left a message like that. I finally worked up the courage to reply. I asked who was really behind the account. The response came almost instantly. It's me, silly. I miss you. Things are different here, but I'm okay. I just wanted to check on you. I slammed my laptop shut and didn't touch it for 2 days. When I finally logged back in, there were more messages. Sarah, or whatever was pretending to be her, asked why I was ignoring her. Said she was worried about me. Mentioned she'd been watching me. That's when I started noticing weird things happening around my apartment. Objects moved when I wasn't looking. The TV turned on by itself. Once I woke up to find all my photos of Sarah and me laid out on the coffee table. I'm writing this now because I don't know what else to do. I can't tell anyone, they'll think I'm crazy. Maybe I am, but every time I close my eyes, I see that friend request popping up on my screen. Every notification sound makes me jump. The messages are getting stranger, more urgent. Sarah keeps saying she needs my help, that there's something I need to do, but she won't say what. I don't know if this is really my dead best friend reaching out from beyond the grave, or if it's something pretending to be her. I don't know which option scares me more. All I know is that I can't bring myself to block the account or delete Facebook. Part of me is terrified, but another part of me has missed Sarah so much. Even if this is all in my head, some tiny piece of me wants it to be real. So I keep the app open. I read every message. I watch for every notification. And I wonder how long I can go on like this before I break. I've started dreaming about Sarah. In the dreams, she's always just out of reach, trying to tell me something. I wake up with my heart pounding, feeling like I've missed something important. The activity in my apartment has gotten worse. Last night I heard footsteps in the hallway when I was alone. I've started sleeping with the lights on, but it doesn't help. I feel watched all the time. I tried talking to my mom about it, but I could tell she was worried about me. She suggested I see a therapist. Maybe I should. But what if I go, and the therapist convinces me none of this is real? What if I'm turning my back on Sarah when she needs me? I can't concentrate at work. My boss has noticed. I'm jumping at every sound, checking my phone constantly. I'm scared to go home, but I'm scared to stay out too. It feels like Sarah is everywhere and nowhere at once. The latest message just said, "Remember the promise." I've been racking my brain trying to figure out what promise she means. We made so many over the years, to always be friends, to be each other's bridesmaids, to grow old together. I broke down crying when I realized we'll never keep those promises now. Is that what Sarah wants? For me to fulfill some promise I made to her? I'm so tired. I can't sleep, can't eat. Every time I close my eyes, I see that friend request. Every time my phone buzzes, my heart stops. I don't know how much longer I can live like this.